I know I have all kinds of things going on here. Okay, so we are recording on Zoom now. We are live on Facebook. I am so excited to be chatting with you today. Mothering Freely members, this is Karen Geiger, and she is the principal at Holy Cross Lutheran School. And I've been wanting to interview her for like the longest time. We were going back and forth, I feel like for the past year, but both our schedules were just crazy. So I'm so excited to finally connect with you today. A little bit of backstory on this. So once I kind of found out how amazing EFT was for me, I was super interested in now utilizing it with my kids. And that was, gosh, it was about 6 years ago. And I was looking for resources and looking for things online, and I just didn't find a lot there. And then finally I get this flyer in the mail, and it was Dr. Amy Geiger was doing this presentation. I don't know if it was through ASAP or EFT International, one of those organizations. And she was from Purdue. And I was like, oh my gosh, she lives in Indiana and she's doing EFT in schools. And she was doing research on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to meet this lady. So I connected with her, and she actually came to Fishers. We had a meeting, and she asked if HSE schools would be interested in a study looking at high anxiety kiddos and comparing EFT to cognitive behavioral therapy. And I was like, oh my gosh, if you can get through the red tape, like yes, yes, and yes. My kids are in HSE. I would love that. So we ended up doing that. And then she also offered other schools as well. And I have a couple of friends at Holy Cross Lutheran School and a couple of clients as well. And so I'm not exactly sure how you got a hold of Dr. Amy Geiger, but the study was done at your school, right? So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, there was a connection from a family at Holy Cross, and she was using this in her therapy with children and just connected us in that way. She said, I think Amy asked her if she knew of anyone with younger children, because all of the studies she had done at this point were middle school and up. So she wanted to see, with our kindergarten through like 4th grade. And so I interviewed all of our parents, surveyed them, and they were all on board. So, and they didn't have to participate if they didn't want to. So, but almost all of them did.
Yeah. And what were the results of the study?
It was a lot of different things that we found out. Some of our students who had really high anxiety did not want to do the tapping. And so, which was really interesting. But if I talked to them while they were really upset, and I would just be talking about things, you could just see them just de-escalate, which Amy had said to try it because she thought that would work as well. They didn't have to do it. So we had great results. Our older kids, like 4th and up, here's an interesting thing. I think if we were to do the study today, it would look differently, because there is so many more strategies out there for helping your anxiety and realizing that so many people struggle with anxiety. Yeah. That I think kids would be more open to this. And then they are now. And so, but it was all good results. Everything, it was real interesting. A lot of parents came to me when I said, I'd like to do this study. And a lot of parents came to me and said, oh my gosh, I've been through this. I used this going through college. This is wonderful. I'm so excited that we're going to be trying this with our children. So, and our little kids loved it. It was just like a tool for them that they didn't know. And you don't need it. You don't have to buy anything. It's, it's just on your own body. And we put scripture to ours. So, a lot of times you say, I have a lot to do, but but I know I can do this. We would have a scripture verse that the kids could recite that they loved. So we tried different ones, but they kind of had their one favorite that they would go to, and that worked out really well. So
yeah, I love that. And I love that you kind of took it and made it your own and were creative with it. And that's what I always encourage moms, especially if kids are resistant or if they're like, that's too weird. It's really to kind of meet them halfway and what are they interested in? And so a child that is interested in sports, it might be a good way to show them a video of someone they have a ton of videos with Olympic athletes. They have a great video of a college baseball player, a pitcher using tapping. And some of those videos are just great ways to sell EFT, because let's face it, like sometimes like it's just too weird. Tapping on my face, how can that help me to relax? And moms were like, I know that it helps me and I want you to like experience this. So I tell moms, like, it's just like selling broccoli to your kid, you know, you know that it's good for them, but you have to find ways to make it cool. So you call it tiny trees, or you say that, you know, so-and-so eats it. And so it's a matter of selling it to your child. And I think in schools, it's the same way. You have to make it cool, and you have to find creative ways to introduce it. So I love that you did that. And I love that you're also using scripture in a Christian school. That's just a great way to relate the kids and to bring a value that's really important to you into that practice. So that's amazing.
Great too to start at a younger age, because then it's just part of what you do. My granddaughter's 2, and you know, she's already starting when she gets upset and starts to throw a temper tantrum. You know, you can't really teach her tapping. She's a little too young for that, but you know, we're going to try. But you know, her mom will just say, take a deep breath, and and it totally helps. So, you know, everyone needs a strategy. And I think the younger you start, the easier it is when they get older, because they have multiple strategies that they can use.
Yeah. And I think what I tell moms and teachers too is like, maybe you can't teach the 2-year-old how to tap. I think that you can also do 4-point tapping, and sometimes they'll respond to that. But even as a teacher, and I believe when I came to visit your school, you had mentioned this too, when you were working with a student that you would tap on yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I always encourage teachers and moms to, especially if that child is throwing a tantrum, the best thing that you can do is just to calm yourself down and ground yourself. And in doing that, you are teaching them, you're grounding yourself, but you're also modeling that to them. And as a 2-year-old, they're like sponges, and they're going to do exactly what you do. And so if mom's tapping on herself, they're going to end up tapping on themselves too. And I saw that firsthand with my son. So yeah, that's really powerful. And it really is, they can't be too young to teach tapping, because even with infants, you can tap on them directly. And so incorporating this tool, I love that you brought that up, like at early ages, it's just giving them that strategy and having that in their toolbox for when things like this happen, like teach them tools, give them tools now, because the world is stressful. We're going to have stress. And so, telling them to calm down isn't always enough. Let's show them how to calm down. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So
the other thing we found was that a lot of the kids were doing it because we said, if you can't sleep at night or you wake up, this is a great thing to do. So a lot of the kids were using it more at home than they were at school. So they weren't as comfortable. Our older ones, our younger ones, they're uninhibited. They're ready to roll.
Yeah. So how do you use music? Did you use books? Like how did you, especially with the younger kiddos, how did you introduce tapping to them?
We did have a book.
Yeah.
And I forget the title of it, but it has all the parts on it. And Amy suggested that we get it. And then our school counselor went to all the rooms and she read it with them. And then they talked about it and practiced. And then there were little posters that Amy gave us that showed the points and, just to help them remember. And certain kids had certain favorite points, which was interesting. And some didn't like. And, so I called Amy. I'm like, do they have to do all of them? Because they really did not like doing this. It didn't feel right for them. Yeah. And so Amy was like, no, they don't. If that one bothers them, if it causes them anxiety, that's not the point. And some loved it. So it was just interesting.
Yeah. So. And I love that you point that out, because like even as an adult, like I have favorite points, for anxiety, just holding my hand over my collarbone and taking deep breaths for me, stimulating that acupoint is really helpful. You don't always have to do all of the points. And especially with kids, doing it discreetly is important. They don't always want to tap on their, on top of their head like a monkey in the middle of class. And so teaching them that, hey, yeah, that's okay. You don't have to do all of the points. Just do what feels good for you. So I love that point too.
We had all the teachers trained as well before they, so that way they knew what it was and how it helped them. And so they would share their own personal stories or say, oh gosh, this one, my stomach's upset. So it really feels good when when I tap under my eyes or when I tap whatever, they just would share personal things. So.
Yeah. And so will you be teaching it again? Do you teach it every year to new classes, or how are you doing that?
Yeah. We don't do the full out teaching like we did before, the very first time around, but we'll come in, and I actually think we're probably, it's in my plan of return.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I think we're going to bring that back a little bit more, and be a little more intentional, because we were kind of, if this is a strategy, if you want to use that. I just think, and I don't know, kids are so resilient and they always surprise me, which is why I love working with children. But I worry they're going to come back and feel like I'm out of my bubble, I'm going to be sick, and I really think some kids will feel like that. And so they're going to need a few more tools to get themselves calmed down quickly and, in their spots. They're not, so I think we're really looking at that. We have a sensory room, which is great, but I feel like they need something right there pretty quickly. And I think deep breaths is not going to be enough. I think they're going to need a little bit more. And we'll see. Maybe, like I said, maybe they'll surprise me and they'll be so excited to be back. But
yeah, and we still don't even know what that's going to look like. And
right.
So it's hard because there's so much unknown still,
right.
For all
that's
of us.
Yeah. Struggle with that, so.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. But the more that we can make it a safe place for them and help them to feel safe. And that's what EFT really does, is it's turning off that stress alarm. It's turning off that fight, flight, or freeze, button, and saying, it's okay. You're safe right here. It's okay to calm down right now. And I think with everything going on in the world right now, and then returning to school, that little part of the brain is just going to be constantly being activated. I'm already seeing it with my daughter's friends, is a lot of them that have been cooped up and now are being released back into things. There's some anxiety there, and these are kids that didn't have anxiety before. So you look at those kiddos, and then you look at other kiddos that already were struggling with anxiety, and this could potentially exacerbate that. And so it's just reminding them of their tools, and maybe bringing those boards back out, the pictures of the tapping points. A lot of times with tapping, it's just hard to remember to even that I have this tool. And so I always say, like, the hardest part of tapping is remembering to tap. And that's for adults, that's for everyone, because you're getting that freeze state. And so you forget what tools you had. So I had the kids through all this make a list of all the ways that they can help themselves. What feels good for me? Is it taking a walk? Is it playing, basketball outside? Is it jumping on the trampoline? Is it just getting, a quiet corner? But making a list of all those resources and having that list visible at all times, so that when they get into that state, these are the tools that I can access. And EFT is just another tool.
Right. Yeah. I think our kids too don't know how to sometimes identify what it is. I have this stomach feeling like I'm sick. Well, wait, I'm not. So we spent a lot of time last year talking about zones of regulation. And we color coded them. We just copied off the Yes Brain book, which I love, just so that they could even identify that you might need to do tapping, or you might need square breathing, or you might need the 5 finger, whatever, basketball or whatever it is that you need, because kids could not figure out the difference between I'm tired and I'm anxious. And there's a difference. So we spent some time preschool all the way to 8th grade, and we had facial expressions, we had feelings, we had a lot of conversation, really coming in every morning and, having their picture, and they put it on a color, like, how are you feeling right now? And they could move it throughout the day. And so I thought that was super helpful, because I think a lot of kids would say, I don't need that. I don't need tapping right now. I'm like, I think you do, and before, because when you get to red, you pass the point of being able to help yourself. At that point, you need a trusted friend to get you back in line. And so we always say green is, you're good to go, you're ready to learn, but your other ones, you probably need, if you're feeling any of the other things, you probably need a little something, to help you. And that's okay.
Yeah. So you're teaching them to kind of listen to their body whisper before it screams.
Yes.
It's,
Oh, I
yeah,
love that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's those steps way before. And I worked with girls with panic attacks. And so they felt like the panic attack was coming out of nowhere. But really the panic attack starts with my heart is just slowly racing. Now it's just a tightness. Now there's so many steps before that. So it sounds like with those colors, they're able to recognize, one, that my body is connected to my emotions, right? Which is like game changer. I mean, there's so many adults that don't even realize that. So teaching them that is just the most beautiful gift ever. But then also being able to recognize that so much sooner and staying in like that other color before we get to red. What can we do before we even get to red? So I love that you're teaching that to your students, because that's just such an important life skill. And I didn't even know that as a counselor. I didn't realize the whole body to the mind, because even in traditional therapy, there's just not a lot of conversation about the direct response the body has to the mind, that somatic response. And so it's just one of the most important things that I talk to moms about and talk to teachers about is connecting those dots for a kid. Like, wow, you look really angry right now. Let's label that emotion, help them to label it. But then also, what does that feel like in your body right now? Does it make you want to throw something? What does that feel like for you? And then just even labeling it and connecting that with their body can take so much power away from it, you know? So I love that you're doing that. That's amazing.
And then I think it gives them power too, to know I have these strategies. So I can, I feel like this, but I have all these other things to do. And on top of that, behavior improved. So it was a win-win all the way around.
Yeah. What was the book that you had mentioned?
Oh, The Yes Brain. You're going to want to know the author, aren't you? And I'm not going to know it right now, but it's actually written for parents.
Okay.
And Dr. Hollenbach, who is one of our parents, who is a wonderful pediatrician, as is her husband, Dr. Chitty, she had read it and recommended it to me last summer, and I read it, and it just talked about how to create a yes child, and it's about being resilient. Mm-hmm. And it's all about how do you respond? How do you look at things? Like, my friend isn't being nice to me, and instead of being like, oh my gosh, this is devastating, it's, oh gosh, maybe there's another friend. How we respond as parents can help shape our kids. So it starts from infants, like how you talk with them. It's a great book.
Yeah, maybe we can post that in the link then.
In there too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that sounds like a really helpful resource. I mean, we can post that.
The same author that wrote The Whole Child.
Okay.
I think it's the same one. Siegel
Dan Siegel.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, we'll post that in there too. Do you have any other resources that you recommend for parents or for teachers, just for that, or that might be struggling with their kids' mental health? Do you have any other favorites?
Oh gosh, I have so many. I'm looking at my book behind me.
You got a library over there?
Well, those are my COVID books that I thought I would read, but I haven't read any of them yet. Oh my gosh. Yes, I do. And I can't think of one right now. I'm going to have to send them to you because.
Yeah, that would be great. And then I can post those in the links as well then.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are some children's books that I love. I love the Julia Cook books. Are you familiar with those?
Yep.
I love reading those with kids. And I even love reading, they seem very juvenile, but even with my middle school kids, I love reading that. And it just talks about behavior and why are you doing that and how are other people responding. Mm-hmm. The other thing that we did beyond our zones was we did the social thinking, which was originally designed for students on the spectrum, but it has some real great social aspects about it. And so when you're in blue or you're in yellow, you're not in the group plan right now. You want to be in that group plan. And I don't think, and we talk about how everyone has a story going on in their head. They may not say it out loud. So like when I interrupt constantly, or I'm throwing a fit at home because I want something, even though my mom doesn't say, that is annoying, or you're making me crazy. Like, we're thinking those things, or you look at them and go, I wonder why they're doing that. Or if your friends are looking, why do they keep interrupting? And so when we talk to kids about that, that there are questions, they may not say them out loud. And so that was a really interesting thing too, for kids to see, I might need to get myself I need some tools right now to get myself calmed down because I am not in the group plan. And so, so that's been an interesting little twist too. So, if anyone's struggling socially, I would really recommend the social thinking books. There's card games, there's all kinds of great things. And it's been around for a long time, but I mean, it's a good, I've had it, put it away, and then brought it back several years later. I mean, a lot of years later. So,
it's a good one then.
Right. And it's called, there's these characters, the unthinkables, and like Talks Too Much Tim, or there's all kinds of topics like interrupts or rock brain. Like, I just am stuck on this one thing. I want pizza. I want pizza. I want pizza. You're like, you're having rock brain right now. We're not having pizza tonight. So it's great parenting tools too. So
awesome. Well, thanks for sharing those. I'll try and connect those as well.
I got off topic. Sorry.
No, this is all on topic. These are going to be teachers and moms just looking for resources. And I always say EFT is a resource and it's a great tool to have in the toolbox, but it's not the only one. Like, let's load that toolbox up.
Right. I love tapping. I personally use it. And when I can't sleep at night or my brain won't shut off. And so I turn on the Abide app, which is, it's a Christian app. It's kind of like the Calm app. And I will tap and I fall asleep right every time. It's amazing. So I'm sure it's a combo of tapping and God.
Yes. Well, and a lot of the moms that I work with, they will, especially right before bed, incorporate prayer into it or whatever. And yes, I think that it's really powerful, especially I add oils in it. I'm like, you can just really a lot of bang for your buck there. You're including God, tapping, and oils. Like
you've covered every base.
You've really got it covered.
Our teachers used to do when they would do in the morning, they would do a whole class tapping and they would do devotions while they were tapping. They just start their day that way. And I thought that was the most impactful. But then we had some kids who's for the sign up didn't want it to be a whole class because there was just a couple. So then we had to reconfigure a little bit. So, but I think it's super powerful when you can do it. But I think people they're a little more receptive to doing some of those different strategies now than we were several years ago, which is amazing. It hasn't been that long ago, but I feel like the stigma behind mental health and anxiety has, it's better.
I would agree.
They're more educated and they're more open-minded, and I think people saw it as a weakness. So we didn't want to admit that we had anxiety. So of course we don't want to admit when our children have anxiety. So
and I think at this point we're all just like looking for answers and looking for help. Right. And I think there's going to be a lot of parents out there that are just like, oh my gosh, how can I help my kid right now? Or how can I help myself right now? And so I think they're going to be open to things like EFT tapping, that it might be a little bit outside the box, but it's like, we're desperate. So that's why I really wanted to get this conversation, especially because I think heading into the school year, just people are going to be looking for stuff like this. And so the more that we can, get the word out there, and that's really everything, is like, once I've heard about that. And like, for me, it was like, oh, EFT tapping, that's too weird. And it took like 3 or 4 times before I was like, all right, what is this?
Yeah.
And I think that's how it kind of works, is like, you hear about it, your friend had it, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for showing up and being with me here today. Do you have anything else that you want to add, or?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know that you are super busy, and I am just like praying for you and all the educators out there. I know you have so many difficult decisions right now, and trying to navigate through uncharted territory. Like, my heart just goes out to you. So lots of prayers for that. And just thanks for all you do too. I know that from lots of friends, just how passionate you are about those kiddos. And I just appreciate that as a human to human,
Yeah. Well, love on your teachers, because they are,
yes.
the word, and I know it's been twice as hard to parent. So it's, been twice as hard to teach. They're not having a lot of breaks. So love on them a little bit.
Absolutely.
So we want the kids to all come back and learn and really build more relationships. That's the key.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And you have a good rest of your day.
I will. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Karen.
Bye.
Bye.